I got a question for Jerry. On this disc that I got, that I'm listening to you, I must have heard it about 20 times while I'm working in the shed while it's been one of the acres discs. You're talking about something that you've made up with for beekeepers to put in to stop the varroa mite, and the bees actually, as they walk on it, they clean themselves and they ingest it, and that kills the. Is it the varroa mite?
Yeah, there's two things you can do. You can make kind of a paste that they'll get involved, and it's some essential oils, some honey, some water, and you just give it out as a drink, and they drink that, and it seems to work really well on the mites.
And do you think that'll save us? We don't have varroa mite in Australia, do we?
Not yet.
Not yet.
You don't have it here yet.
No, we're clean it at the moment, but it'll come here for sure.
Yeah, thanks to us. Yeah, right. It seems I've kept bees, and it seems to really work, and I think it's maybe a promising remedy for what we have now called colony collapse disorder, but I think that's more pesticidal induced than anything else. To see something.
They tell me bees are pretty important in the whole scope of the environmental side of things. If we lose the bees, we're in trouble.
You like bees?
No, my neighbour does. The bloke I bought the farm off has bees.
Yeah, we've got recommendations there. We've got all our different price lists for all our different types of testing. There's brochures out on the soil care table there. There's also soil bags out there, that sort of thing. We only need a couple of 100 grams of soil. I mean, the ridiculous thing is some people just love sending us half their paddock. We don't want all your soil. We want you to keep your soil and look after it. So you only need a good sized handful of soil, and leaf testing is particular leaves to grab there. So yeah, there's a whole process, and it's all on our website there. So or send us an email. When we did the lantana and some of the other weeds there, we were doing direct soil straight under those plants. And we also found that soil was absolutely rich in calcium and a few other nutrients. So how much are these weeds building the soil and actually exudating the soil to build up what is lacking in the soil? I've had lecturers and professors in plant chemistry, and they go around the world looking at plants, native plants, to see what metals they accumulate. There's plants that will accumulate naturally massive amounts of nickel, chromium, arsenic, and they'll just concentrate it into hundreds to thousands of parts per million in the leaf. So plants have different attributes for concentrating nutrients. So there's a lot we can do with weeds. They're amazing what they can do. Everyone's got them. So let's see what we can do with studying them.
Just to add to that, I've heard that they're using a big tomato farm in Africa is using lantana and making compost tea brew from the lantana for their making. Is it nematicide? Is that what they call it?
Nematicide, yeah.
Nematicide. So there's many ways you could use the benefits of these weeds. Fungus and fungal problems is something that I have a lot on my farm. I'd love to get in Jerry's ear. He's talking about communicating, plants communicating with other plants. Well, we've just lost our pecan crop, probably 50 tonnes at $4 an acre. $4 a kilo we've lost. So that's how much we've lost with these. But I really think we had a cyclone on the 28th of January and just ripped the trees to pieces. We lost 50% of our canopy, and we had 6 or 10 trees just completely blow over, snapped that root off, and then but I still had a crop left on the tree. I was so happy. Then we 3 weeks later we had another flood, and on the Thursday I was working in the orchard, and I actually done a compost tea spray, and on the Monday, it took me till the Tuesday, only 4 or 5 days later before I could get back down the farm, the nuts on the tree had turned black and gone rotten. And I normally, that's a fungal problem. I've had the nuts tested, and it looked like if the nuts go rotten from the inside out, it's anthracnose. If they go rotten from the outside in, it's Phytophthora. But there was 6 foot underwater. So the only thing I've been thinking about for years is, does the tree say, listen, I've been so knocked about with this cyclone and these floods and it's been wet for 6 weeks, come and take the nuts and save me life because I don't have to look after me babies. Is that possible? Or am I just crazy? Is the tree is the tree talking to the fungus and saying...
Did he say it was a cop?
Retired.
Retired cop. retreaded compost. Okay. Well, I mean, 6 feet of water, 6 feet of water. I mean, we had 28 inches above rainfall 2011, and in South Jersey, New Jersey, there's a microclimate there where they're they're able to grow these really beautiful wine grapes. It's only about 10 miles wide, right there along the bay, along the coast, and they can do a pretty good job there in light of the fact there's lots of naturally occurring humidity there. And Rutgers University is collaborating with those grape growers there, and we've been collaborating with Rutgers, and we've been trying to get them to use terpenes. And one of the things you might want to try over here that we've been pretty encouraged by is making, instead of making a compost tea all the time and having to apply it fresh, which I like compost tea, but you have to apply it, is make what we call industrial yogurt, which is basically take some whey, which is a waste product, and ferment it, just like you do at a controlled temperature and incubation, inoculating it, and then spraying that on a regular basis. And I think what the best you can hope for with these nutritional sprays or these biological sprays, whether it's compost tea or what we call the industrial yogurt, which is a stable ferment. It's an anaerobic process that actually stabilizes all of the, it's not really so much a live product anymore because the pH of the yogurt drops down to about 4.5, and that shuts the whole fermentation off, stabilizes with the organic acids, all the metabolites that are in there, and that's the stuff that is really anti-disease. These byproducts, the poo of the bugs really is the metabolites. That's the stuff that stabilizes things. And we've had some pretty encouraging results with a very inexpensive, just get some whey, or you could just buy dry powdered whey, reconstitute it, and then inoculate it, just getting a yogurt culture, and then keeping it at about 95 to 98 degrees Fahrenheit, right? And for about 12 to 18 hours, or if you keep the nutrients going and you alkalize it, keep the pH up, it'll keep fermenting, so you can add other things like kelp, and it'll metabolize those, it'll eat those things, and you get this whole soup, this whole bouquet of all these unidentified growth factors, as we used to call them years ago, and a lot of these are antifungal. And what they've done at the grapevines here is they found out that, if you get this stuff on a preventative basis, as opposed to waiting until the 6 feet of water in the seeds and leaves, preventatively, you have a whole lot better chance of dealing with normal challenges of diseases. Now, 6 feet of water is not normal. But the other thing we found out is taking the terpenes, which are the essential oil compounds, emulsifying them with soaps, and spraying small amounts of those. I'll talk about those Saturday, I guess. Mm-hmm. The plant secondary metabolites, these things, same thing that protect the bees, these essential oil compounds, and just a breath of that stuff every week and a half seems to, we had a produce grower in upstate New York near the Finger Lakes that all of his neighbors around him all had late blight, that came in and wiped out tomatoes. And it was a late blight epidemic that year. He was the only guy, he was like an oasis of tomato growers that didn't have late blight, but he went out preventatively and sprayed these PSMs on his tomatoes about every week or so, because he heard the late blight was coming up the coast. And so he got on it before it arrived in New York State and didn't lose his crop. So, preventatively, these things are a whole lot more encouraging than waiting until you have a full-blown, virus or fungal attack or something. So.
Well, I'd like to learn more about that. Obviously, with just little conversations, I need to study it a bit more. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm glad to share it with you. Sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. Yeah.
I have a question. Do you recommend topsoil profiles, or do you also recommend subsoil profiles?
I didn't get right into that, but we go through the normal 0 to 100 mil, scrape off the organic matter layer, take that next layer, and for tree crops 150 mil. Mm-hmm. But really, if you want to start looking at least once in your lifetime, look down your profile, dig some holes, have a look what's down there. Mm-hmm. You can see your hard pan. Get a small tractor or whatever, go down to a good meter and just see what's happening, see if you've got root activity. Then take an analysis on 30 to 60 centimetres and maybe 60 to 90 or something like that. And you can start seeing what's moving down. If you've had a farm that's been inorganically fertilised for 30 years, I'll tell you what you'll find down there is a hell of a lot of sulphate, boron, there's a whole lot of leachable nutrients that work their way down the profile. So what we do is we determine nutrient regime on this top 10 centimetres or so, or 10 to 15 centimetres. We're saying, oh, well, you've got to add boron, got to add this. You may have massive amounts of it down the profile. So be aware of that.
Amounts, right? Even toxic amounts?
Even toxic amounts, for sure. And even phosphorus. You may have a small store up top, and then just down your profile, you might have massive amounts. It might be reversed, but if you don't look, you don't know. So I think you do need to be aware what's happening down your profile, and then really just get your roots and get your plants growing and get them accessing all that diversity of nutrients.
So I want to see how tight the soils are under the best of circumstances when you have, and by the way, the typical rule of thumb, if you're going to fracture pans with steel, is do it when the soils are moist but not waterlogged, because clay expands when it's wet. So if you were to fracture pans when they're dry, and then it rains again, and it will, you're going to end up closing up those slots with the expansion of the clay. So best case scenario is what I typically recommend. Yeah, because in the middle of July, and where I live, when we get the dog days, as we call them, the doldrums, and the moisture recedes, the clay starts to contract and it gets very tight. However, the point we're making then is what you'll see as time goes on and biological improvements occur, the penetrometer readings get better in the spring, as they should, but they also, and this is really then the acid test is, what happens now under the worst case scenario in July in my area? What happens in July or August? And what you should see is what used to be impossible to put a penetrometer in July and August, now you can get in there because there's more moisture and carbon in the soil, and that's what we're after.
Fully support that. You want to get your best case scenario. The worst case scenario is maybe too frightening. But yeah, compaction is one of the major issues in every farm. If you're not looking at it, you're not looking at your farm. I've had forestry people doing major plantation forestry saying now that, we've found a correlation, or looking at a correlation. Are all our forests dying because we've got compaction issues? Why have they got compaction issues? They've really got to go through all their indications, what's happening, why they're spraying pesticides that are killing every bug there is that helping to the compaction? I mean, it's a very complex issue and something everyone needs to work on.
We have a crow problem, and we can get hundreds and hundreds of crows. Now, one crow will eat 6 kilo of pecan nut in a season, they tell me, but they don't destroy the trees. Now, what happens when the cockatoos fly in, the scouts are flying, the crows come from there everywhere, and they bash up the cockatoos, and they send them down the river. So you'll never shoot a crow. The only way I can shoot a crow is if I was in the kitchen one day and I had it through the kitchen window and I shot the crow. And I missed the crow. My wife went, holy bloody hell, I got in all sorts of strife and the smell of gunpowder all through the kitchen, and I was in so much strife. But it's the only time I only got close to shooting a crow. So we just leave the crows. They get their share. If I pick them up before they pick them up, I win. But they always get some. But they bash up the cockatoos and send them down the river. So we're lucky that way, I suppose. I can live with the crows. I don't like them, but I can live with them.
We're really starting to see the full effects of the damage we've already done. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to go anywhere near coal seam gas. I think there was good alternatives there. If we look at the two premiers in Queensland and New South Wales, they both came into government and started to downplay renewable sources of energy, and those industries really suffered, cut back on all the payments and everything. So I just don't think we should be looking at something that's going to create so much damage, and we know just from experience that is what will happen, and that's what I mean about deliberate disregard. The might of industry and the ignorance of government will push ahead until we've destroyed another environment. We've heard all about healthy food at this conference, and I was talking to a few people yesterday about how beautiful the area of Gloucester used to be. It was one of the richest dairy areas. It was always green. As a child, I sort of went up there and on holidays, and it was one of the things that led me to become a farmer in that beautiful area. And now we're seeing coal mining and coal seam gas approved, and it will turn that area into an area that my concern is not only are we losing the beautiful areas and contaminating, that's bad enough, but we're losing the very thing that we need to stand by us against climate change and to provide the water cycle. It wasn't that long ago, the desal plants all went in because we were really concerned we were running out of water in all the major cities, and now we've got this extreme flooding. It's just the decision making. It all comes back to the decision making and the goal setting for the future, and there doesn't appear to be any long-term goal from the governments, So, yeah, I think it's ridiculous to be going in. In our area at the moment, we're fortunate. There is an exploration licence out over the entire New England. There's concerns now, speaking to some Aboriginals the other day, that their communities are getting divided by the coal seam gas companies because they're waving the money at the community. So that the people that really love the nation and cared about it deeply are even the Aboriginals are getting torn apart by this issue, and it will continue to divide communities. And I just think it's something we don't need to be going at. I did a paper a few years ago talking about where the environment was going, and called Foundations of Life, and I didn't mention coal seam gas. It wasn't on the radar. It was a few years back. Why would they go there? I mean, we know it's not about energy because they could be putting in lots of renewable energy sources. It's about the revenue. So, yeah, I think we need to stand together and say that's not something Australians want. We don't want it. Don't do it.
Inspiring morning. So thanks very much. And I'm going to be whipped a little later for not handing out the hats. You need a new one. Cover yourself up. You're not getting one this time. And wear them with pride.